Once upon a time, in a small village in Africa, there lived a girl named Aku. Aku was like a colorful sunset that lit up the village, so beautiful, attractive, and charming. She looked like a picture, so adorable and admired by many. Aku had come at 0 hour after her parents had waited for a child in vain. Her mother, Cherry, had given up since she was running towards menopause. People in the village had flogged her with all kinds of names. But thanks to Yemaha, the goddess of childbirth, who she prayed to for a child. Here was Aku, admired by many because of her looks, yet so calm, polite, and kind. People in the village would give Aku gifts because they felt happy every time they saw her. Everyone treated her like a small little princess. She was not only a princess to the whole village, but to her parents too. Her parents were farmers and could sell their produce to the traders in order to provide for their daughter whatever was in their means. To them, their daughter was living the richest life. They wanted their daughter to get married to the best, a man who could take over from them the responsibility of keeping their treasure. In the neighboring village were 3 girls, Ade, Chuna, and Moni. They came from the richest families in the village. They were respected because of the wealth their families had. They formed a group which they called the Rich Gang and wore the most expensive clothes and jewelry. They had things that even the most hardworking farmer couldn't afford. They thought they were better than everyone else, so never made friends with other girls. As Aku turned 13, her beauty became more mesmerizing. One day as Ade, Chuna and Moni were seated by the river laughing and talking, Aku came to fetch water. She was so polite and beautiful. She greeted them as always did with everyone. They were so taken aback by her beauty. She was a shining star that shone up the whole place. So simple, yet full of warmth. Her kindness sparkled in her eyes. Because of her unnegligible beauty, they decided to make her their friend. So when they asked her whether they could be her friend, Aku was overwhelmed by the request. Her heart was bursting and exploding with happiness at this. She never expected the Rich Gang to request her for friendship. This was an unexpected offer of friendship to her. She could not believe that she was being invited to join the Rich Gang, which every girl dreamt of. All the girls in the village and neighborhood wished to join them. Some girls had brought gifts in order to join the Rich Gang, but all was in vain. So Aku rushed home to share the great news with her mother. Her mother listened to Aku as she was beating her brains out. She smelled the rat. So she smiled and advised her daughter to be more careful. She advised her that she should stay true to herself and her values despite the allure of this new world. Aku was too excited to worry. She was so thrilled at the prospect of being friends with Ade, Chuna, and Money. She started spending most of her time with them. They went out together, played, sang, and danced together. Aku's life had now changed. She was now more happier. She felt on cloud nine. As days passed, Aku was more absorbed in the lives of her new friends. She could not settle at home anymore. This was a world which glittered with wealth, but Aku didn't know that not all that glitters is gold. A new chapter in Aku's life that would lead to her downfall had opened. One day, Aku heard about a big festival happening in a nearby village. Ade, Chuna, and Money were too excited and wanted Aku to go along with them. Aku at first hesitated, but the idea of venturing out in another village was daunting. She had never crossed her village borders. The thought of it kept her turning and tossing in bed. Her friends persuaded her to go with them. They painted pictures of fun and excitement that awaited them. Soon, Aku had started thinking about the lies she would tell her parents for leaving home. Her friends had told her how old enough she was and how telling a little lies won't be bad. Aku agreed to go with them. It was her first time out of her village. At the festival, Aku caught the eyes of many men. They all wanted to talk to her because of her beauty. She was so beauteous. At first, she didn't want to speak with them, but her friends encouraged her to do so. They said, "You're beautiful and can get anything you want with your looks and body. Don't lose your chances." So Aku started talking to them. A prince came to the festival. He saw Aku and wanted to meet with her. They talked and got along well. After meeting the prince, Aku felt different. She started thinking she would live a life different from the one in the village. She liked the attention and the new way of life her friends showed her. That festival changed Aku. She began to act differently. She was more confident, but also more arrogant and disrespectful. She started going out without telling anyone. When the village elders intervened, she ignored them. "I am now old to make my decisions," she could tell people. The once polite and respectful Aku was now acting differently. Now came Aku's 13th birthday. The whole village celebrated her beauty, just like they did every year. She received very many gifts from the villagers and her friends. The prince who had talked to Aku at the festival brought his gift too. Aku was too excited. This gift was so special to her. She painted pictures of how she was going to be the queen of some village. The prince was every woman's dream. He was handsome, tall, and so wealthy. Aku started spending more time with the prince. They would meet up in the forest, talk, play, laugh, and sing all day. On one hot afternoon, Aku's friends were at her window, calling her as usual. She knew they were calling her for the prince. Like always, they took her to their favorite spot in the forest where they could meet up with the prince. On one beautiful tree, they had written on their names as a reminder of the first day that they met. This tree we shall show to our children when they have grown up. They laughed. They spent a lot of time together, but that day something happened that changed everything. They became intimate. Not long after Aku realized she was pregnant. She tried to hide it from everyone, including her parents. She even tried to get rid of the pregnancy with the hope of her friends Ade, Chuna, and money. But that didn't work. Eventually, her mother noticed and asked her about it, but she denied it at first. Later, she had to tell the truth since the pregnancy was now protruding. When her parents found out, they were so disappointed and felt disgraced. The villagers who once admired Aku and brought gifts stopped coming. Aku felt ashamed and lost at the same time. The prince too had stopped coming, and she never knew where to find him since they had met in the forest always. When her parents and Aku visited the neighboring village in search for the prince, they were disappointed to find out that the so-called prince wasn't reality. He was just a common man who lied to every single girl he met that he was prince. Several girls had become pregnant for him. He would steal the wife's produce, sell and wear expensive ornaments. He would then go to other villages and fill the girls up with his lies. He would tell them how he was wealthy and a prince. 20 girls in the nearby villages had become pregnant. Some had already given birth and were taking care of their babies. Others had dumped the babies to the wife's home, whereas others like Aku were still pregnant. Aku was disappointed. She could not imagine everything she was seeing was a lie. Her friends had turned their backs on her, saying they had nothing to do with her pregnancy. The girl who was once the jewel of the village was now facing the hardest time of her life. She had to live with the choices she made, far from the simple and joyful life she once knew. The news of her pregnancy spread far through the village and the neighboring villages like a wind. Aku, who was once surrounded by friends and admirers, found herself isolated. The community which once celebrated her now seemed cold and distant. The love and admiration they had for her had turned into judgment and gossip. The father of her child wouldn't be there for their child. Ako felt betrayed. She had believed in all his lies and promises. He had used her. Her friends too turned their backs on her. Ako was heartbroken and disappointed. Her friends, who had been her companions in this journey that led her to this point, now denied any involvement and avoided her. This added to her pain and loneliness. As her pregnancy advanced, Ako had to face the reality of her situation. She was going to be a young mother without the support of the child's father in a community that no longer looked at her the same way. The respect and admiration she once enjoyed were gone and replaced by judgment and isolation. What's your moral lesson? The smallest of choices you make matter a lot and can bring a very big impact on your life. So think carefully before you decide on anything. Number 2, every action as a result of influence by other people, that's say friends or workmates, has a direct impact on your life. Those people who influence you may never be there when you are facing the consequences. You can add your moral lesson in the comment section below. Let's continue. One day, a white man came into the village. He had brought news of a new god. He would preach on the streets and visit families too. One day, he visited Ako's family, preached to her, and Ako became comforted. He started visiting every day because he had heard of Ako's heartbreaking story. Soon, they had become friends. Months turned into years. After 2 years of relating with each other, the white man decided to marry Ako. He proposed to her. Ako was super excited. She had found love again. She and her daughter, whom she had given birth to, would live happily thereafter. After 3 years, they were happily married, and the rest is history. Moral lesson: don't give up on God yet. God loves you. Even when others don't find you worthy and appealing, He's there for you, and soon He will give you your unforgettable U-turn. Isaiah 54 verse 14 says, I am far from oppression and will not live in fear. Like and share, and above all, subscribe. Subscribe, please. Love you. See you next time.